Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, May 29th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside, prepare for a pleasant day with a high of 82.5 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 62.2 degrees. It looks like comfortable conditions will prevail, perfect for any outdoor plans you might have. Coming up, we'll dive into the details surrounding Elon Musk's reported disagreement with Donald Trump over spending initiatives. And we'll break down a significant federal court ruling and what it could mean for presidential approaches to trade policy moving forward. Join us as we explore these crucial topics shaping today's news landscape. All this and more when Alex's News continues. Welcome back, everyone. We begin this morning with some significant news out of Washington. A prominent, often controversial figure has officially stepped down from his advisory role within the Trump administration. For more, we turn to our Washington correspondent, Ethan. Ethan, tell us about Elon Musk's departure.
Grace, good morning. Elon Musk departed his role as a top advisor to President Donald Trump yesterday evening, May 28, 2025, concluding a turbulent chapter. According to CBC News and Yahoo Finance, Musk announced his departure via a post on his social media website, X. A White House official confirmed his exit shortly thereafter. The Yahoo Finance report attributed its information to an Associated Press source.
So, he announced it himself. Musk was spearheading the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Ethan, what exactly was DOGE?
Grace, DOGE isn't an official government department in the traditional sense. Its creation would require an act of Congress. Instead, DOGE was established by Executive Order 14,158 on January 20th, 2025, operating as an advisory body under the Executive Office of the President. It reorganized the United States Digital Service, or USDS, renaming it the United States DOGE Service. Musk's official designation, according to CBC News, was an unpaid, quote, special government employee, end quote, a temporary role with a 130-day annual limit. His departure coincided with the scheduled end of this term.
So, a temporary gig. What were DOGE's main goals under Musk?
DOGE's primary goal was to modernize information technology, maximize efficiency, and critically, reduce wasteful spending. Musk initially aimed for $2 trillion in spending cuts. However, according to CBC News, this target was significantly scaled back, first to $1 trillion, and ultimately to $150 billion due to resistance and political blowback. The DOGE website claims approximately $175 billion in savings. Some reports, however, suggest these figures might contain errors and could potentially lead to future government costs due to rehiring expenses.
That's quite a shift in targets. Were there specific actions Musk took that drew criticism?
Yes, Grace. Musk's efforts were drastic, including thousands of layoffs and what CBC News described as the, quote, evisceration, end quote, of some government agencies. He reportedly dismantled entire departments like USAID, which critics warned would harm vulnerable communities worldwide. DOGE's activities, such as facilitating layoffs and assisting with immigration crackdowns, have faced legal challenges and criticism regarding transparency and potential overreach of authority.
And this all culminated in a very public disagreement with President Trump over the, quote, Big Beautiful Bill Act, end quote, didn't it?
It was the immediate catalyst, Grace. Musk publicly criticized President Trump's, quote, Big Beautiful Bill, end quote, calling it a, quote, massive spending bill, end quote, that would increase the federal deficit and, quote, undermine the work, end quote, of DOGE. This criticism aired in a CBS interview, according to CBC News, released the day before his announcement. The, quote, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, end quote, H.R. 1, narrowly passed the House. Its focus included extending tax cuts from Trump's first administration, notably the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and temporary tax elimination on overtime and tips, estimated at around $4 trillion. It also featured significant immigration enforcement funding, defense spending increases, and cuts to programs like Medicaid and SNAP. Musk famously remarked, quote, "I think a bill can be big, or it can be beautiful. I don't know if it can be both," end quote.
Quite a quote. So he truly believed this bill would undo his deficit reduction efforts. How did the administration react? And what's next for Doge?
Grace, following Musk's announcement, President Trump defended his agenda, acknowledging some unhappiness but stating he was, quote, "thrilled by other aspects," end quote, according to CBC News. While some Republicans, like Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, shared Musk's spending concerns, House Speaker Mike Johnson thanked him and promised future cuts. The White House has since proposed specific rescissions, including $1.1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and $8.3 billion in foreign assistance, all according to CBC News. Reports indicate Musk did not have a formal conversation with President Trump before his announcement. The White House has affirmed that Doge's efforts to cut federal spending will continue, so while the head dog has left the kennel, the mission remains.
Ethan, thank you for shedding light on this intricate situation. That is our first story for the morning. When we come back, we will turn our attention to... Welcome back, everyone. We turn now to a story making waves across the nation, especially here in California, regarding the Trump administration's trade policies and their far-reaching effects. For more on this, we are joined by our news reporter, Chloe. Chloe, this is quite a pickle, isn't it? What's the latest on how these policies are impacting our crucial port system?
It certainly is a port in a storm, Grace. California's major ports, which are truly vital gateways for global trade, have been hit hard. According to officials and experts, they've seen a dramatic decline in cargo volumes. The Port of Los Angeles, for instance, experienced 17 ship cancellations just this month, surpassing even the levels we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. They're reporting a 35% drop in cargo compared to last year and an overall 25% decrease in incoming cargo for May. Similarly, the Port of Long Beach observed a 35 to 40% reduction, and the Port of Oakland a 15% month-over-month drop in April.
Those numbers are staggering. What does this slowdown mean for the people whose livelihoods depend on these ports?
It has severe economic consequences, Grace, particularly for employment. Mario Cordero, who is the CEO of the Port of Long Beach, warned that a 10% decline in cargo could translate directly to a 10% reduction in jobs. This could potentially affect 100,000 positions linked to port operations. Layoffs have unfortunately already begun, impacting dock workers, truckers, and numerous related businesses. To put its economic importance into perspective, the Port of Long Beach's activities alone contributed $84.4 billion in local, state, and federal taxes in 2023. Businesses are really struggling with an unpredictable tariff landscape, which is causing delays in orders and a sharp drop in imports. We're talking high tariffs, like a reported 145% on many Chinese goods, which is a real burden for sectors reliant on Chinese components.
That's a huge hit to the economy. And just when we thought we had our sea legs, this happens. Now, a federal court recently blocked President Trump's sweeping tariffs. Can you explain the details of that ruling and why it's so significant?
Indeed, Grace. In late May 2025, the U.S. Court of International Trade, with a 3-judge panel, blocked the vast majority of President Trump's global tariffs. They deemed the method used to enact them unlawful. The court found that President Trump had exceeded his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, often referred to as IEEPA, which he had cited to justify these duties. The ruling stated that IEEPA does not grant the president unbounded authority for unlimited tariffs, deeming such an interpretation unconstitutional and a violation of Congress's power of purse. This decision imposed a ceasefire on most restrictions Trump had announced since taking office, including a baseline 10% duty on most trading partners and steeper duties on dozens of economies like China and the European Union. Legal experts noted this was a novel use of emergency powers, with one attorney general stating no president had ever used this emergency power for tariffs before.
So this ruling essentially clipped the wings of the president's tariff powers. How has the Trump administration reacted to this setback? Are they planning to fight this?
They are absolutely planning to fight this, Grace. The Trump administration immediately announced its intention to appeal the ruling, and the case is widely expected to reach the Supreme Court. White House spokesman Kush Desai criticized what he called unelected judges, and close aide Stephen Miller decried the decision as a judicial coup. President Trump himself defended his strategy as negotiation to gain leverage in trade talks. Despite the court loss, experts like Goldman Sachs expect the Trump administration to find other ways to impose tariffs. The ruling has thrown the administration's trade policies into uncertainty, even creating chaos for ongoing trade negotiations. The court gave the White House 10 days to complete the bureaucratic process of halting the tariffs pending appeal. So that deadline is June 8, 2025, which is just 10 days from today.
So it's not over yet. What other legal avenues might the president explore to impose tariffs if this ruling stands?
That's a critical question, Grace. The president may explore several other legal avenues. For example, there's Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, which allows tariffs if imports impair national security. Then there's Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, which authorizes the U.S. Trade Representative to act against unjustifiable, unreasonable, or discriminatory foreign trade practices. Section 122 of the same act permits temporary tariffs to address a serious balance of payments deficit. And Section 201, known as Safeguard Actions, allows temporary tariffs if imports cause serious injury to a domestic industry. Finally, Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930 authorizes tariffs against countries discriminating against U.S. commerce. Each of these has distinct requirements and limitations.
It sounds like there are many different sails to hoist, but the current situation at the ports is dire. You mentioned earlier that the decline has been attributed to new tariffs. Is it really that simple, or is there more to the story of why cargo volumes are plummeting?
It is definitely not that simple, Grace. While the significant decline in California port cargo in May 2025 has been largely attributed to President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs announced on April 2, 2025, and other IEEPA-justified tariffs, a more complex causality exists. Given typical lag times in global shipping logistics, the full brunt of tariffs announced only in April and legally challenged in May would not be the sole or primary driver of such a dramatic downturn in May itself. Shipments arriving in May would often have been booked weeks or months prior. However, anticipatory actions and market sentiment can play a role, as uncertainty from the announcement and legal challenges could slow new orders. More significantly, the cumulative impact of longer-standing tariffs, such as those on Chinese goods since 2018, would have already prompted ongoing supply chain adjustments. The May 2025 decline could represent an acceleration or exacerbation of these pre-existing trends. Plus, other global economic and shipping factors could contribute, like a broader cooling of the global or U.S. economy, shifts in trade routes, supply chain disruptions, fluctuating inventory levels, or changes in consumer demand. So it's really an interplay of these factors.
Chloe, thank you for shedding light on this complicated trade situation. It sounds like we're still navigating very choppy waters.
My pleasure, Grace.
We'll be keeping a close eye on this developing story. Coming up next, we dive into local news after the break. Here's some other headlines. In a move that has some hitting a high note, then President Donald Trump issued a pardon on Wednesday, May 28, 2025, for Louisiana rapper NBA Youngboy. This pardon silences the legal static around Kentrell Gaulden, who was sentenced in 2024 to under 2 years for federal weapons charges as a convicted felon, stemming from a plea deal that also covered probation and a hefty fine for possessing several firearms. He'd also previously pleaded guilty in a separate prescription drug fraud case. This clemency, part of a wider series, means Never Broke Again won't be breaking probation. Released from prison in March 2025, Gaulden thanked the president, ready to focus on his family, art, and an upcoming U.S. tour this September, hoping his future tracks are less about legal battles. Meanwhile, scientists are digging up some ancient history, quite literally. A study in Science Advances has unearthed a previously unknown group of hunter-gatherers in Colombia, dating back about 6,000 years. DNA analysis reveals their genetic makeup is distinct from other known ancient American populations, suggesting human migration to South America was more complex than previously thought, a real gateway to new discoveries. Researchers are now puzzling over where this unique lineage, which seemingly vanished about 4,000 years after appearing, fits on our family tree. Tragedy in South Korea, as a Navy patrol plane crashed in Pohang on Thursday, May 29, killing all 4 crew members. The U.S.-made P-3C Orion, operated by the Korean Navy since 1995, went down just 7 minutes after takeoff during a routine training mission. Witnesses reported an explosion and heavy smoke. Thankfully, no civilian casualties were reported on the ground, though the incident has grounded the P-3 fleet pending an investigation into why this flight tragically didn't stick its landing, ending a long period of accident-free operations for these aircraft. Across the waters, Nordic nations are bracing for a potential storm of a different kind, adopting a quote, old defense strategy amid rising European security concerns, particularly regarding Russia. This comprehensive approach mobilizes entire societies, military, civilian, and private sectors, to counter threats from military aggression to cyber attacks. Norway, Sweden, and Finland are significantly increasing defense spending, reviving Cold War-era civil defense measures like bomb shelters, and educating citizens on their roles. It's a full-scale societal shield-up as they prepare for what Norway's first national security strategy calls a new era, ensuring they're not caught off guard. And finally, in the world of digital currency, crime is unfortunately cashing in on real-world violence. A disturbing trend sees crypto-related thefts escalating from behind the screen to brutal physical attacks, including kidnappings and torture, as criminals try to force victims to give up their digital assets. Recent cases from New York to Paris highlight this grim development, with perpetrators using extreme measures to access Bitcoin passwords and hardware wallets. Authorities note an increase in such violent attacks, fueled by the allure of large sums and the perceived anonymity of crypto, proving that sometimes the biggest chain in blockchain can be the one holding victims captive. It's a stark reminder that digital fortunes can attract analog dangers. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.